Hey everybody, I'm Burak and you're watching Cathlist. Thanks for that, by the way, and if you like it, share it with others. On May 13th, 1917, 10-year-old Lucia Santos and her cousins Jacinta and Francisco Marta,
Francisco, that's fun to say. Francisco.
who were 9 and 7 at the time, were herding sheep in their family's field, the Cova da Iria, near Fatima, Portugal. Suddenly they saw a woman, more brilliant than the sun, wearing a white mantle rimmed with gold and holding a rosary. She asked them to devote themselves to the Holy Trinity and to pray the rosary every day to bring an end to the war, World War I. She came to be known as Our Lady of Fatima, and devotion to her has since spread around the world. But did you know that the Marian apparitions were actually preceded by an apparition of an angel? In the spring of the year before, an angel self-identified as the Angel of Peace taught the children prayers, how to make sacrifices, and how to worship the Lord in adoration. That's just one of the facts about the miracles at Fatima we'll be talking about today, so stick around. The children didn't tell anyone about the angel, and although Lucia had said that the three should keep the experiences between the three of them, Jacinta told her family about the apparition of the Blessed Mother. Her mother told a neighbor as a joke, and as you might imagine, the whole village knew by the end of the day. The children experienced a total of 6 Marian apparitions, once a month from May to October of 1917, and always on the 13th of the month, except for August, but more on that in a second. The lady never identified herself as Our Lady of Fatima. Actually, she called herself Our Lady of the Rosary. One of the most intriguing aspects of this particular Marian apparition was the 3-part secret Our Lady shared with the children. During the July apparition, the children were shown a vision of hell, full of demons and lost souls suffering indescribable horrors. After the vision, the Blessed Virgin told the children the second part of the secret, that World War I would end, and that another war would begin during the reign of Pope Pius XI, should men continue offending God and Russia not convert. She also requested that Russia be consecrated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The third part of the secret, which wasn't disclosed until the year 2000, was a vision of a bishop dressed in white, seen struggling through a ruined city while being shot at with arrows. Lucia, Jacinta, and Francisco were kidnapped and interrogated, which is why that August the apparition was on the 19th. You've heard of the miracle of the sun, right? Well, in case you haven't, hang on, because it's a really cool story. The children had predicted that the Blessed Virgin would perform a great miracle, so a crowd of 30 to 100,000 people had gathered in the Cova da Iria. It had rained the previous night, like all night. The field was soaking, muddy mess, as were the people who had traveled all night to be there. During the apparition, while Lucia, Jacinta, and Francisco were conversing with the Blessed Virgin, the crowd saw a true miracle. The clouds parted to reveal a dull gray sun. The sun careened toward the earth before zigzagging back into place, casting multicolored lights all over the crowd. A Marian disco? I'd like to go to that party. When it was over, the previously wet field and soaking pilgrims were all dry. So, pretty much everything that had been wet was no longer wet, like instantaneously. In June of 1917, Lucia had asked the Blessed Virgin to take her and her cousins to heaven, to which she responded, "Yes, I will take Jacinta and Francisco soon, but you, Lucia, are to stay here some time longer. Jesus wishes to make use of you in order to make me known and loved." Following this, she told Lucia of the devotion to her Immaculate Heart, promising salvation to whomever embraces it. Jacinta and Francisco did indeed die when they were still children, victims of the 1918 influenza epidemic. Lucia Santos secretly left Fatima in 1921 and went to live with the Sisters of St. Dorothy in Porto, a few hours away. She did this with permission from her mother to spare her from the fame and incessant questionings she had to endure. Lucia received 3 more apparitions later in her life. On December 10th, 1925, she saw a vision of Mary and the child Jesus. Mary gave Sister Lucia the 5 first Saturdays, a promise of all the necessary graces for salvation for those who fulfilled the devotion on the first Saturday of 5 consecutive months. June 13th, 1929, Sister Lucia was praying in the convent chapel and received an apparition of the Holy Trinity, and Mary asking that the Pope, with the bishops of the world, make the consecration of Russia to her Immaculate Heart. Finally, on January 25th, 1938, a light described as the Aurora Borealis appeared in the sky over northern Europe. Lucia recognized this as the unknown light also spoken of by Mary in her childhood apparitions. It meant that punishment for the world was close because it had not turned back to God, and namely, that was World War II. The Catholic Church had been officially silent about their apparitions at Fatima, and it wasn't until May of 1922 that Bishop Correa de Silva wrote a pastoral letter indicating that he would set up a commission of inquiry. He approved the visions as worthy of belief on October 13th, 1930. October 13th, the same day, anniversary of the miracle of the sun. That's pretty sweet. That is all the time we have for now, folks. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Cathlist. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and check out the links in the description below. I'm Burak, and I'll see you next week. How bizarre. How bizarre. Ooh, baby. Sister Lucia, the first... Mary gave Sister Lucia... Yeah. No, it's like a combination of mouth fatigue and coffee.